Hello and welcome back to another Diabetic Witterings. I was quite surprised last week. I got a huge number of responses and questions and comments, which was really quite delightful. Thanks a lot for all of you who bothered to write in, because it makes a big difference when you realise people are actually watching these little witterings that I give. But right, let's just get a few things out of the way. First of all, I'm not a medic, I'm not a doctor, and I have no particular education or training in diabetes apart from what I picked up myself, having been diagnosed as type 2 diabetic a couple of years ago. So these are my experiences and basically what I've discovered along the way. But everybody's different, so don't take my words as gospel. Do please go and check yourself with your own GP or nutritionist or whatever it might be. However, it became quite obvious after last week's video that a lot of people are interested in the Fast 800 diet, Michael Mosley's 800 calories a day diet, but there's a lot of people very nervous and anxious about it. So I thought I'd just give a little bit more of my own experience. Now, there were several people who wrote in and said, yeah, we tried it, but the trouble is everybody else looked at the food and said, ew, don't like that. And so I've had to have a separate meal cooked for me every day. Well, that can happen. And unfortunately, if the rest of the family all wants to have a pizza from Domino's, or if they're all determined to have a curry which will have huge amounts of sugar in it and God knows what else, you are going to have a problem. I'm very fortunate. I've got a very supportive wife and it's just the two of us now. The kids have moved away. So it's a case of trying to find things which I can eat and she can eat. And it's actually not that difficult, because I can still have things like a chili con carne. I can still have a spaghetti bolognese. The only difference is I just don't have the pasta. Now I'll have a courgette spiralized, which is different. It's much more liquid. I'm still experimenting with things like trying to dry out the courgette. Sorry, that's zucchini for Americans. If you get long strands of zucchini courgette, then it's very damp because a courgette is largely water, but you can pat it between some bits of kitchen towel and stuff and dry it out a bit, and then it is remarkably similar to pasta. So there's that. Instead of rice, I will sometimes mash up a cauliflower, and a cauliflower will give you sort of little beads when you whiz it up in a food processor quickly, and that can be very good. On the other hand, I also find that I can cook myself little flatbreads made of rye flour and buckwheat, and yes, they'll give me an increase in blood glucose, but it's a much slower increase in blood glucose, and it takes quite a while for it to build up, which will build up like that, and then it drops off fairly quickly. So there are alternatives, and the trouble is, of course, that these things are never the same. So I mentioned to someone on responding to a question on the channel, but for many weeks I was having a tomato and lentil soup on a Monday, because that was our fasting day, and it was really good, and the lentils gave a very slow release of sugar into the blood, and it was fine for many weeks. And then one week suddenly it wasn't fine. I had a massive blood sugar spike. Absolutely no idea why. It was the same, in fact I think it was slightly fewer lentils than usual, and everything else about the recipe was exactly the same. So I can only assume it was I didn't have enough exercise that day, or I was under a bit more pressure because of work, getting things done, or something along those lines. I don't know, but you can never be 100% certain. This blood sugar measuring is not a 100% accurate easily gauged thing. Basically, your blood sugars will go up, they will come down, and it'll be due to a number of different factors. It won't just be the one thing. So anyway, what I thought would be useful was just to mention a little bit about how I managed to keep within the diet. Now, the main problem with any sort of diet is when you get hungry, what do you do? Now, I was always a fairly firm believer in the idea that I was not going to starve myself all the way through the day, because I knew I'd find that next to impossible. So I would plan my day around a small quantity of breakfast. What would I have for breakfast? Well, a lot of people swear by different types of yogurt. A lot of people love Greek yogurt. I can't stand Greek yogurt, actually. I've tried it several times and I've never really enjoyed it. But what I can have is a couple of large spoons of kefir, about 75 grams of kefir, which is a sort of Moroccan yogurt, I think. And with that, I will have a little bit of turmeric, a little bit of ginger, and a handful of nuts, about 30 grams worth of nuts, and about 20 to 25 grams of blackberries or blueberries. Mix it all together, eat it slowly, and I find that keeps me going for a morning quite happily. Lunchtime, lunch can be a problem when you're on the Fast 800 diet, because you're limited obviously to 800 calories a day. If you've had the kefir, that's probably going to be about 150, 200 calories. But what I used to find was if I had an egg, then that would keep me going for quite a few hours. Sorry, the puppy has left lots of dog hair on me. So an egg at lunchtime, and then immediately go out for a walk for an hour to an hour and a half, so about 5 miles. That would keep the hunger pangs off, and because I was out on the walk, it would distract me so I wasn't thinking about food all the time. Just in case, I would also take an apple with me, and then if I got really hungry while out walking, which could mean I was doing a bit too much exercise, could mean I was getting a bit low in blood sugars, then I'd eat the apple, and that would always keep me ticking over. Easy. What else? Well, what I have found in more recent months, we've been trying to fast at least 2 days a week. Well, at least 1 day a week, and usually 2. But you do get hungry. Obviously you get hungry because we are so used to having food readily available 24 hours a day, and you can always go into the fridge and get something, can't you? But what I've found is that there are certain things that work really well. One is eggs, one is celery, one is cream cheese, which I make myself, one is radishes, one is nuts. Now each of those, small quantities, take 2, 3, 4 radishes. They have no calories whatsoever, but they do give that little rush of, oh, I've eaten something that feels a bit better. Similarly, 2 sticks of celery. I always buy, well, every single week we'll buy 2 bunches of celery, we'll buy 2 bags of radishes, and they'll be enough to keep me going through the week whenever I get peckish. Celery, oh, it's boring. Yeah, it can be, but I make kefir. Kefir is sold usually as a sort of drink. Basically, you get these funny little, they call them seeds or beads, I think, of kefir. Add ordinary milk to it, leave it for a couple of days, and you get this slightly fizzy, slightly sour, milky drink. If you leave it for a little bit longer, it'll solidify, and you've got a sort of a yogurt. And all you've got to do is pour it into a muslin cloth that you've cleaned before, and you'll get all of the solids, and the whey will pour away. Great, so you've got a sort of yogurt, which I do like. I'll have that for breakfast most days. But also, I'll keep making it, so I've got too much yogurt, and then I will put that yogurt into a muslin cloth and leave it to drain for 2 or 3 days, and it becomes basically cheese. And add a sprinkle of salt to it, add some flavourings if you want. I've thrown fennel into the latest version. And that makes a not particularly low calorie, but a very filling, substantial cream cheese that I can put on my celery sticks. I only have a tiny amount on each stick, but it's just enough to give the celery a bit more flavour and make it a bit more substantial. It feels more filling, therefore. And if you've eaten something which feels filling, you're less likely to want to go for something else. What else do I have? As I say, nuts. Regularly of an evening, I'll feel just that bit peckish. Later on in the evening, I'll have a handful of almonds or a handful of mixed nuts, whatever it might be. It just helps. And there is one other thing. Can't stress this highly enough. If you're like me, I'm not someone who particularly likes sweet things, but just having the occasional sugar-free sweet just helps. In the same way as an occasional piece of chocolate helps. I mean, I really miss the old days when I could eat a glacé cherry that was fully enrobed in chocolate and flavoured with some sort of cherry alcohol. I loved them. Can't eat that now. But there are lots of manufacturers of chocolate, like Lindt, the famous Swiss manufacturers, who make 90 and 95% pure chocolate, which means bugger all sugar. So I forget what it is. It's something like 1 gram of sugar in every 2 cubes of chocolate. So very often, at least once every other day, I will have a couple of blocks of chocolate, cubes, you know, that sort of amount, not a block. And I'll eat them with a cup of coffee at 8 or 9 o'clock, because it just gives you that little burst of, oh yeah, that was nice. It's a little bit of a treat, it's a little bit of niceness, and it helps. And all of these are just ways of basically staving off the hunger pangs. Because if you're on a diet, the worst thing about a diet, and the reason why so many diets fail, I believe, is that they're too restrictive. If you can get rid of that sense of restriction and give yourself the sense that, yes, you can still have a treat. Yes, you can still have an occasional slice of pizza. I had a pizza not that long ago at a friend's house. I made myself some dough that was based on purely whole wheat dough, flour, no white flour in it at all. And yes, it had a slightly different texture to an ordinary pizza, but cooked in a pizza oven. It fluffed up nicely. It was very tasty. The toppings were low sugar, low carbohydrate. And it was really nice to have a pizza again. You can do these things. It's just a case that you have to get used to the fact that it's not the same as before you were pre-diabetic or diabetic. Things have changed and you've got to be a little bit more aware of what you're eating. But if you're aware, if you reduce the quantity you eat, if you take more exercise, and when you do get peckish, you have something that's actually quite good for you, like a hard-boiled egg or a handful of nuts or a stick of celery, life is pretty good. And that's all I wanted to say for this week. Sorry, this has been a bit of a rush. This is already Tuesday morning. I've now got to edit this and get it live for 5 o'clock this afternoon. It has been a long weekend. We had a bank holiday Monday and I actually took the day off and had some fun. So I apologise for that. Shocking, isn't it? I had some fun. Right, that's it. That's your lot. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed this, please do hit the like button, because that means this video will get circulated a bit more to other people who have never heard of me. And that means I might be able to get the messages across about diabetes to a wider audience, which is the objective of these videos. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot. And if you want to support the channel, support me, you can buy me a coffee, you can go to the Patreon site, you can do whatever you like, really. I'm not that bothered. And I'll speak to you soon. Take care.